My name is Karen Golden Oronte with Living Histories for Cohasset Historical Society. Today I am in one of the conference rooms at the Cohasset Senior Center at Wilcott Common. March 9th, 2020, there were 41 seniors at the weekly Monday Cafe held in the cafeteria here. And there was an impromptu conversation had between Mary Goodwin, the town nurse, Nancy LaFosse, the director, and some board members of the Friends who sponsor the cafe about the looming virus traveling around the globe. Massachusetts saw its first case February 1st. The United States documented its first, or one of the first deaths, February 6th. It was determined that this cafe would be the last until there was a better idea of what the future held. March 10th, Governor Baker declared a state of the emergency that because of the spike of cases in Massachusetts. By March 24th, Governor Baker issued an emergency order requiring all businesses, organizations that do not, quote, provide essential COVID-19 services to close their physical workspaces, facilities to workers, customers, and the public as of Tuesday, March 24th at noon until April 7th at noon. These businesses were encouraged to work from home. So here we are, about 700 days later, sitting in the senior center that has now been opened to the public. And I am going to start with, let me start first with Diane. Diane, move up a smidgy, please.
Sure.
So we had a conversation prior as to how you personally were introduced to the virus and your personal experience. If you could just tell us for the purposes of reserving history here.
Hi, I'm Diane Pico. I'm the Assistant Director here at Cohasset Elder Affairs. At the end of February, beginning of March, my eldest daughter, Danielle, was in Italy when the COVID-19 pandemic started. She was actually in Milan the weekend that it broke out, and she got the last train out before they shut the city down. So we were watching the numbers carefully, my husband and I. The news, watching it go from 5 people to 10 people to 1,000 people, from her having to come home and then being sent home and coming to Logan Airport with her peers and not being tested. And then we were posed with the problem, what do we do with this child coming home? Do we quarantine her? And the data really wasn't out yet, the news wasn't. We didn't really have any guidelines, no one knew what to do. So we brought her home, this was end of February, beginning of March, and she was sick. So, and she couldn't get tested because at the time you could not get tested unless you were in direct contact with someone who had COVID-19. Even if you had symptoms, the tests just weren't available. So we quarantined her in our basement, and then I got ill, and my husband got ill, and then I was supposed to come to work. Not terribly ill, but enough that I had a cough. I went to the doctors. I still couldn't be tested. There was no tests. Even if the doctor wanted to test me, he did want to test me, but he couldn't get permission from the state. I had to be in contact with a confirmed case. So quickly, I reached out to Nancy and the town officials, and they allowed me to work from home before anybody was working from home. And the whole time I'm seeing my daughter and her peers come back from Italy and Europe, right through the airport, knowing that this was going to come before it actually hit here. So it was really uneasy, but I was the whole feeling of what to do. But I was really thankful with the opportunity. So I think I was one of the first town employees to work from home, Nancy, before we were even set up. And I quarantined for 2 weeks. Then came back to work, and right about then, everything started here in the States. We were about 2 weeks behind, 2 to 3 weeks behind, I don't have the exact dates.
So now, Nancy, you're aware now of what is going on with Diane, and you and the rest of the office and the population that you work with, that's a lot of knowledge that now you personally have to address the Elder Affairs Department.
Yes, it was. It was quite scary. It was really a time when everyone was unsure. Nobody knew. We heard rumors. We didn't know what exactly was going on. And around this time, I started meeting with town officials through the emergency management group. I was part of that group, which included the emergency management of Glen Pratt, the Chief Sylvia of the fire department, the police department, the Chris Senior, and various other people. And that's when they started using the word out of an abundance of caution. And I remember that word very well. And anyone who called, we were using that just because it really was out of an abundance of caution. We were thinking about having to close down or not. First we said we're not going to have any more programming here. First it was programming, and then it turned into a bigger thing where the state decided to shut down all non-essential. So that's how it started, but it was a very time of uncertainty.
So in your specific relationship with the public, who had the most relationship with communicating with the public, and now they're wondering, the seniors thinking, well, I don't drive, the van was stopped, or a senior who's too afraid to go to the grocery store, or a senior that had an impending doctor's visit and needed a ride. All of these, and they needed to know how they were going to get food in their house. So those who dealt with that, was that you, Liza, specifically?
Well, it was me specifically after an agreement with all of us in some ways that we were able to make accommodations so that seniors wouldn't be left alone or wouldn't be left stranded.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a couple of different things. We stepped up our food pantry delivery. So we used to drive people to the food pantry, and then we had a group of people who were unable to get to the food pantry that we delivered to. We just started delivering to anybody who needed delivery from the food pantry. And then Nancy, worked with, I guess it was the School and Social Service League, and we developed a grab and go lunch program, which basically the schools were preparing meals as a part of one of their programs. So we had a driver go up and pick up meals for anybody who wanted a breakfast or a lunch 3 days a week. And our driver delivered them, but delivered them socially distanced. So we provided coolers and ice packs, and the driver would just drop the meal and then call the individual and let them know that the meal was there. And then we also developed a relationship with St. Stephen's. St. Stephen's Church had a volunteer group who were interested in providing soup for seniors every other Friday. So we collected a list of seniors who would be interested in getting that meal, and we every other Friday arranged with St. Stephen's to have those meals delivered. And then on the off Fridays, we had our partners at launch who were also cooking meals and then delivering them. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, people were fed. And then you had mentioned sort of medical rides. When that switch kind of hit in March, we did have some medical rides scheduled. We continued with a few of them that were what we would call essential needs. Then I would say that most of the doctor's offices were not doing in-person medical rides. They were doing telehealth. So telehealth became a big deal. But we, in July, started providing essential medical rides again. And what that meant was that anybody who was getting a ride that we had deemed essential, we had to call them and ask COVID questions 24 hours before the ride in the morning of the ride to make sure that they didn't have any COVID symptoms before they could get on the van. It also meant that our drivers, we had to situate people differently in the van so our drivers could be safe. Of course, everyone was masked. The driver would be up front. The passenger would be as far away from the driver as we could get them, depending upon what vehicle was being used. And then the drivers had to sanitize the van between every ride. The drivers would sanitize with, a wipe or with a spray. So basically, we're just doing everything we could to help people, but also maintain the safety of the individuals riding as well as our staff.
So, well, first off, I want to mention this is Liza Salerno. So,
Sorry, I'm the services coordinator at
Yes.
Cohasset Elder Affairs.
very important position because she is working with the seniors always. And who were these drivers that helped you out with these?
So primarily we had staff drivers, Gerard Buckley, Fred Huntwork, and we have a third driver, Steve Glenzel. Unfortunately, we cut things down to a degree that we only were able to use Steve periodically, but they were pretty much our staff drivers. We didn't really use volunteers other than in one specific circumstance where we had a critically ill senior who needed to go to regular treatment, and we arranged between our staff drivers and a couple of different volunteers to cover those rides that happened several times a week. But other than that, pretty much our volunteer driving program stopped because we had to ensure the safety of our volunteers and our seniors, and it didn't seem like an appropriate thing to be doing in such a critical health emergency.
So one of the biggest benefits of the Elder Affairs office here is communication with the seniors, helping them out. But also there was a phone list of people who volunteered to call seniors every morning, a well-being phone call just to sit and talk. And so I think is that something that your area?
We all did that,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that is one of the things I'm particularly proud of. We didn't skip a beat. We really hit the ground running. When we knew we were going to shut down, we went over all of our lists and we divided them up. Anybody we could think of that could benefit from a call, and we all called daily. In addition to the Elder Concierge Program launch, they're individuals. And we did. We called people daily just to talk, and we were working from home to communicate. We're still here. There was so much fear, especially for our people that rely on us, just knowing that they could still reach us.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, a lot of other places you couldn't, other towns didn't have it set up like we did. You'd get an answering machine. So that was critical in making people feel calm and letting them know what was going on. And I think we did a fantastic job with that.
And that's a really good point, Diane. I just want to also add, because Richard was here the 5 days, because he was doing the Meals on Wheels, we made sure nobody ever lost a meal, or that we still had our volunteers coming, and Richard was a real pivotal part of that, and the point of people calling here, and they got Richard, and he, if we didn't call out, and if they called us, there was a voice at the other end, and he got a lot of people calling in just to say to say hi.
And if he was busy, or let's say he was doing Meals on Wheels because he was very busy here alone, all our phones were forwarded to our homes.
Oh, okay.
IT
To
did
our
that
cell
right
phones,
away, our cell phone. So they wouldn't even, we would answer from home, Cohasset. They didn't,
They
they
didn't
didn't
know
even
where
know
you
it
were
was
sitting.
right. So there was really, and then with Richie here, of course, too, for
So let's introduce Richard Gibbons. Richard, now you were here by yourself
Yes,
from when?
quite lonely.
And we heard that the police had to come down a few times to have you lower the music. Too much partying going on.
I can neither confirm nor deny
Okay.
any of the statements what you just said.
Okay.
No, it was a very almost like an out of body experience. As so many people know, Woka Commons was built and designed as the senior center to bring people together, to have programs and activities going on a daily basis. So once the lockdown was established by the governor's office for the Commonwealth, and the vast majority of the staff was working remotely from home, doing their work from their safety of the places where they were, through the benefit of the systems that were set up by our IT department to enable us to do that, we still kind of had to have someone here, almost like on deck, to kind of coordinate if there was anything happening here at the center itself, because the center, even though it was closed, was still available for use by the town. Emergency management used it for a lot of storing of the PPE equipment and everything else. Deliveries were being made here on a daily basis, and as Nancy and Diane have already stated, the Meals on Wheels program continued during the entire duration of the COVID pandemic. So it was logistically a different way of running the office that had not been ever done before, and certainly the remoteness of people working separately, even though we were all busy. And that was like one of the things people would say, oh, during COVID, how are you doing with this, that, and that? You guys have been pretty bored. It was like, no, actually, we were pretty busy. I mean, you may not have been physically in the building, or people staff-wise may not have been in their offices, but we were working every single day, 5 days a week. Some of us would even maybe even chip in on a Saturday or here and there, whatever, to help out with a phone call or something like that. So the manner in which our work was being done during the pandemic changed, but the work itself really didn't change, other than the fact that maybe there was just more of that outreach to the community, especially for those seniors in vulnerable positions or people in the community who needed that helping hand and that outreach that maybe they didn't receive before. And maybe that was a positive thing that did come out of the COVID pandemic, was the fact that we were able to acknowledge and recognize, hey, there is a need here, and then maybe we can help out, and how can we develop a relationship with these individuals.
So the other thing that I actually was amazed at was the amount of Zoom classes. Now, I like to think I'm capable of, somewhat computer literate, but there are seniors, who are 30 years older than me, who, or maybe not that old, much older than me now, but that were able to join a Zoom class and play ukulele, have a ukulele class. I thought that was amazing. Or Tai Chi. Here they are doing Tai Chi, which was amazing. So how did all of that get orchestrated and presented to the senior? Yeah, how was that happening?
Nancy, I want you to answer. Well, that was one of the other things I was really proud of, how quickly we went virtual. We had all the mechanisms here, but we didn't have the workflow in place. And with the help of IT and Richie, we went virtual right away, because we knew people sitting at home, they needed that. They needed to still connect with us. Because there's so much more than just, meals are important and all that is important, but just the social aspect that so many people rely on us. And I think we really did well with that. It wasn't easy.
That's not easy.
Zoom was hard. I said, what is Zoom?
We all learned.
We
know
go.
now.
It was a learning curve.
It was
Yeah.
like you're kind of being thrown into the deep end of the pool and having to learn how to swim very quickly.
And we did it.
But we did it.
Yeah.
And credit also goes out to the partnerships that we had with our instructors. They did an amazing job, and some of them, it's kind of funny, necessity being the mother of invention. A lot of our instructors, because they were operating out of their houses or operating in their offices remotely as well, to do the programming that they were doing, exercising online through the Zoom platforms and everything else, was amazing, just to see how they set it up and how they were able to communicate with the people online through the camera, through the platform that was being offered, and also utilizing YouTube and some of the other social media platforms during the entire pandemic was certainly a new and unique opportunity for us. But the good thing is, and to put a spin on it, and a positive spin, is that we've learned through the pandemic just how we can utilize these resources. Face-to-face, of course, is always the most important, and I think something that we always want to make sure we do first and foremost. But in the event where a person maybe is in a situation where they cannot reach us, in a face-to-face, or come here in person, we can utilize some of these platforms in order to do these type of things.
So, let's see, what else can we talk about that you experienced last year?
During just to piggyback on what Richie said, is in the beginning, I don't know if we all remember this, but we were doing actually video public service announcements to our seniors. So we actually all filmed ourselves using our iPhones.
I think we should have set
And,
up doing like 2 or 3 each.
Yeah,
that
we
we
did,
put out there.
and so they were all, shared through the town, so that it's
On
another
143
way
TV.
for seniors to be
So
able to
you
see.
videoed yours, and how did they get to the seniors then, these videos?
143
Oh.
John, yeah, we put it on our Facebook
Yeah.
page,
Yeah.
and the town also put it out when they put out their media. So it was a good way for us to get to everybody, let them know that we were still, again, the big point of it was so that the older adult didn't feel like they were alone during this time, and that they knew that we were still thinking about them. We tried to provide them with information, whether it was about vaccination clinics, whether it was about rides that we are able to provide still by Essential. It was about getting shopping, online shopping, all those kind of
COVID
ideas.
scams. COVID
Yeah,
scams
so we
was a
tried
big
to
one.
think of
Yeah.
a lot of different things that may have been important to the older adult, and so. And it worked out really well, I think. I think we provided a lot of
The
information.
cooperation between so many different departments, not just town departments, but also organizations here locally, Social Service League, Friends of Cohasset Elder Affairs, the Launch Program, the Grab and Goes, which Liza mentioned earlier, through the high school, Marilyn and her staff up there. I mean, I do the Meals on Wheels program and doing that. Our volunteers, people who were willing to come out during even the height of the pandemic when people were not certain as to what exactly was going on, to say, I am willing to help. Let me know in what capacity I can help, and I'm there for you. And that outreach and that type of community was really a wonderful thing to see happen here in Cohasset.
I agree, and Laurel Hickey and her staff, the Elder Concierge Group and Lodge, they went above and beyond, going to the grocery store for people. I mean, we provided the base, we really wanted to keep older adults out of the grocery store at that time when it was, just not the place you wanted to be. So if you had Meals on Wheels 5 days a week, Grab and Go, breakfast and lunch 3 days a week, special meals on Fridays, we really provided a lot of food. And then Launch would go to the store for people in between. It was really amazing. We did everything possible, and then we were calling people daily.
So really, they really had no food insecurity.
None.
They had communication via the phone, or if they wanted to go to join a Zoom class, which was really pretty huge.
Especially in the earliest part of the pandemic, especially. I mean,
Yeah,
when,
it must have been calming to know that
Yeah.
you guys were here. So now you hear that there's a vaccine on the horizon, and how did that morph into reality?
So during that time, we were all kind of again hearing that this was going to happen, and so they did set it up under the emergency management group that I belong to. Decided that right here at Wilka Commons would be a really smart place to have it because of the availability of the parking, because they could come in one door and out a different door, because there's spots, for the people to wait in one area because you had to wait 15 minutes after your vaccination. So for all these reasons, the emergency management team came in and set it up perfectly. They had 3 or 4 nurses injecting, and then they had people like us. So the staff at Elder Affairs helped. Liza was one of the people who put information into the computer, and then everyone on the department, every single one of us called over one
It was a lot of phone calls.
to set up the appointments. So that was a huge thing. We got the list from the town of everybody we started with the people who are most vulnerable, and we went down that list and called each and every person to see, would you like a vaccine, and if you would like one, when can we set it up for you?
Wow.
And it was a lot of.
It was a process to schedule them. So
Right, yeah.
it was
Yes.
it was a
Sorry.
Yeah,
When
go
the
ahead.
town started with, they started with the pre-registration process before we got the vaccines. We helped people with that, so we had everybody pre-register, and then when we did have the vaccine and there were appointments available, if they didn't respond to an email or a call, we individually called them, each and every person who pre-registered, and then we registered them through the system and got their appointment and waited for them to get the verification email. It really was, and we were all so happy to do it. And then, and then the clinic itself was just an amazing operation, how they pulled that together.
Yeah.
It was
thrilled,
impressive.
It was very efficiently run.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I must just to add that when we were calling those people, the happy and joyous
yes.
people on the
Yeah.
other end,
That was
that
the best work
Yeah.
of the whole year.
It really,
Yeah.
it really
Yeah.
we
was.
called and said, we have an appointment for you, would you like to schedule
Oh,
it?
I
And
bet
they
they
were
were
just,
Beyond
they
thrilled.
were so thrilled. It was a happy, happy phone calls, every single one of
And
them.
the other happy phone calls were towards the end when we started calling people. They said, "No, I've already had my
Yes,
vaccine."
and we
Oh,
were-
So
wow.
they've gone up to one of the big clinics,
Yeah.
Right.
and so that was another
When it
thing. It's
became
like
more available.
it actually got to the point where we were calling many more people than needed shots.
I know.
Before
Yeah.
before the state stopped
the other
letting
way.
us have
Yeah.
them here, but it went from joy about getting a shot to joy they've had a shot. And that
And a
was,
joy
yeah.
if we found someone who needed a shot because
Yes.
people got vaccinated so quickly. But we really, reached out. And then they did the home visits. We don't want to forget that, Nancy. Do you want to
Yes.
talk about that a little bit?
Yes, again, Mary Goodwin and the fire department, a few of the paramedics went out to each home that we identified as the most vulnerable who could not get to the clinic and went around in the course of, I think, over 2 days, and then they had to make the follow-up 2 days of a follow-up appointments. So it really was nice to know that these seniors who could not get out, could not get to our CVS, could not get to a major, couldn't drive, we were there for them. The town really provided in as many ways as possible.
How many clinics did we have? Were there six,
Six
five or six
five or
clinics
six
here?
clinics, I believe,
Yeah.
and I think there was a total vaccinated of I think over 500 people through the building.
Wow,
Yep.
that's excellent.
Harborview, our elderly housing, they
Right.
all got individual visits into
Mhm.
their apartments, which was fun for them
Concierge
too.
service for
Concierge
sure.
and this, the firemen would go in and we got these joyful calls. Of course, conversation took place because
Yeah.
you had to wait after. They just made their day,
Yeah,
and right in their own home they were able to get. It made them feel so safe,
yes,
you know.
Yep.
And that's the theme. What we all tried to do is make people feel safe, even when we weren't feeling safe. I think we
Even
did.
during our drive-throughs, which we had a number of
yeah.
drive-through
right.
Yeah.
programs last year, because one of the things we do here is we try to, especially during the big time holiday events annually, is we try to have a big event here in the center where we have usually a lunch or a sit-down type of meal, but have entertainment and everything else. And I think one of the things that Diane took charge of and really got rocking and rolling during the past year during the pandemic is we actually had what we called our drive-through and pickup
holiday,
events,
yeah,
in which people came through, signed up in advance, and they came through and picked up a pre-cooked meal that was already prepackaged for them, came through, and we had a number of those events last year that
when
were
you,
really
starting
good.
in March, you had St. Patrick's Day,
Mhm.
and
Went
April,
all the way.
May,
We started, I think,
October.
yeah, we had
October,
Halloween, our Harvest Fest, Thanksgiving, a little thing for Christmas,
Mhm.
Valentine's.
Valentine's we dropped to homes that one.
Okay,
And then
and
we
then-
had St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, then
We did Dan's lobster rolls.
rolls.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was our biggest one. We had 80 people.
yeah,
And
who's gonna say no to a lobster roll,
it,
right?
it was fantastic.
Drive up and,
And that
awesome.
was a collective
Yeah.
group effort. Everybody really chipped in, and just to see their smiling faces. You could see the people come up. They just wanted to see us, even from their cars, and talk and say hi. It really, and know that they were being acknowledged and thought of. Here you go.
Right.
We're thinking of you. And
It wasn't just a meal either. It
Yeah.
was
It was
beautifully packaged, and often there were cards or poems inside. So it wasn't just like, here's your plastic to-go meal. Diane spent a lot of time making it something pretty,
And
and
their
so you
Christmas
thought you were getting a
baskets, too.
prize when you were getting it. So
And we had volunteers who actually drew cards or sayings so that they got a little something extra in it. And we got a lot of calls from them, from the older adults, responding to that, saying, I didn't expect that. Thank you so much. It was so nice to see you. Or I kept the picture. So it was really and actually it worked out so well for us. We thought the drive-through worked out so well that we're going to continue it.
Awesome.
even when we
Well,
had
that
people
was my
come in.
next question. So what did you do new last year? Because it was really you had to do something, and you're going to continue with it.
Right. So what we're going to do, we're going to give it a try, starting at Wednesdays next month. That they will come in, and we're happy to serve them in our dining room, but also provide a to-go container, because we found that throughout the pandemic there were so many individuals who drove up and got a meal that did not come to the center, but they liked the meal. They liked getting a meal. They liked saying hi to us. So we are going to be able to do that going forward, and I think that's really going to make a difference to people who wouldn't come into the center, don't feel like they need to sit down and get served, but would like a meal. And now it's a new way of doing things, and it's going to open it up to a lot of new people for us, and we're
Interesting.
happy to provide that.
And maybe one day they'll change and would like to come in and
Maybe.
sit at the cafeteria and have a meal.
Well, and that's
say
the other
hello.
thing. We want them to come here, but if they don't want to sit in the dining room, we have beautiful patio furniture. You know, so we are making it we would like them to come in, sit down, but if not, take it with a friend, go to the beach. You know, those are the kind of things. We're here so that we can provide a service to people in whatever way that they need it. So we're willing to meet you where you're at. If what you need is to come in and socialize with others, come into the center. We'll have the lunch for you. If you really would like to just take it because you're busy, you're doing this, that, you're still actively involved in the other things going on, grab it and go. So it's a great way. Just like the Zoom, we'll also provide at some point we'll have some Zoom programs going on even though we're in the building. So we're thinking of all new ways.
Yeah. And so just for instance, the Zoom ukulele class, was there ukulele in the center prior to that?
Diane can speak on
We
that.
had planned to right before we shut down. That was in the works, but it was going to
Okay.
be in-person ukulele.
Okay,
And
and the Tai Chi class.
Right, that was the first time that Sasha Vianney, Richie was a huge help with that. That was the first time they taught because that's through a grant, their Tai Chi in their Matter of Balance. Many people may have heard of that program virtually. And that was, it's amazing the details that really, and how many meetings did we have with Phyllis? Probably 5.
Probably half a dozen at
Yeah,
least,
to
just to
perfect
go over
that.
all the logistics and
The
the setup and everything, yep.
And they're going to continue that going forward because they can reach so many more people.
Right.
You know, because that tends to be our people with mobility issues, and they might have a caregiver with them, and they can do the class right from home. And the ukulele seems to be working virtual because your peers can't hear you.
Yes.
You know, so you can. They're more
Right.
apt to stick with it.
So, but all in all, it just actually was so thrilled to talk to each one of you about how successful the office, the department ran last year. And it was really because of you guys that just stepped up not to the plate, beyond the plate, I thought, because the seniors really were in awesome hands. So kudos to all of you and each of you.
Thank you.
So, and I know not everybody wants to be sitting in front of Dawn being filmed right now, but I have to thank everyone very much, and thank you for watching us on Cohasset's One